Keep my head up from my bald spot. No.
Well, welcome everyone. We're very happy to see so many people sitting in the public seats back there. If any of you would like to sit at the table, if there's a vacant spot, we encourage you to do that. Today is an open exchange. I'm sure all of us want to hear any ideas that relate to how will we grow. Comments on the Urban Land Institute study, but most importantly, get the ideas out on the table so that we can all hear them and try to incorporate them into our thoughts. As we go through the meeting, we'll have other comments to say, but I'd like to, at the outset, say that we really appreciate ULI's study that they've done. I think you guys have truly opened our eyes and made us look very deeply into ourselves, and we appreciate that. And we hope that we can feed back to you today our impressions. There's an item that I'd like to do right here at the very beginning. We, the County Commission, rely very heavily on our Planning and Zoning Board. And I wouldn't say that we rubber stamp what they tell us, but we certainly give it a lot of professional respect because of the fantastic job that they do. And I can see Richard Bedford looking down at the paperwork there, but Richard, would you come up and join me at the podium, please? Richard is, are you stepping down as chairman, or you're continuing as chairman?
It seems that I'm forever chairman, so I don't know.
Okay, chairman forever, but at this point, it's over 20 years and counting. So I think, would like to give a token of respect and appreciation to you for your long and dedicated service.
It's been my pleasure for 20 years to serve on this, and I'll continue to do so as long as the board puts up with me. So thank you very much.
Now I'd like to turn the meeting over to County Administrator.
Good morning. This is another in a series of activities related to how will we grow. We've been on this journey for, I think, close to 3 years now. Taking a look at how we have grown over time. Good morning, Commissioner.
She didn't know where you're talking.
Where's that voice coming from?
It's early.
Out of the clouds. Leave it alone, Dave. And we've traveled a long way looking at how we have grown over the years. And we've had our planning staff in the Building and Development Services Department under John Barnett and the planning staff under John Osborne looking at ways we could grow. And we offered up to the board 3 years ago 3 options for growth. We've worked through those issues. We've been out and when we started this exercise, it was how will we grow a conversation with the community. John has been out, I think, in the last year having that conversation with the community. In the midst of that, we invited ULI in Urban Land Institute in to take a look at the travels we've made and to comment about how we're doing, what they thought of the exercise, to give us any insights they might have to help us along the way. We received a verbal report from them about a month ago. Mike Maxwell is back today to head up an exercise of listening to the board, because at the end of the day, the Board of County Commissioners is going to be requested to make decisions about where we're going to go in the future. So we asked Mike to come back and facilitate that discussion, or a listening session, if you will, with the Board of County Commissioners, doing the talking, and we'll do the listening this time, In addition, there were over 80 people interviewed by ULI when they were in town, and perhaps some of those folks have some ideas and thoughts they'd like to share. So that at the end of this meeting, we'll take our notes, we'll go back and we'll think about it, and we'll come back to the board again. I think we have it scheduled later this month to come back and wrap up and try and make some decisions about where we're going to go on this journey of how will we grow. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mike. Is that the right one to go it that way, John? To head the discussion with the Board of County Commissioners in the listening session. So Mike, if you will.
Well, thank you, Ed. I
And
really-
Excuse me.
I apologize, but I think there's more than one, maybe there's only one mayor in the audience, but I didn't know if you wanted at least the mayors of the cities up here, because there was empty seats.
If there's mayors in the audience from the
Mayor
city?
Poston,
I see Mayor Poston out there. We're calling you out. I was afraid he was going to say that. All right. Mr. Mike Maxwell, Urban Land Institute.
Well, thank you, Ed. Commissioners, Mr. Chairman, Planning Commissioners, it's a real pleasure to be back here and to be with you. And I've been asked to come today and really listen to what you all have to say about our 5-day endeavor, trying to understand everything and putting together a series of what I'm going to call opportunities for you to look at and to consider. So really with that, I think that we can just go ahead and open to questions. And if it's all right with you, so that everybody, since we have such a large number of people here, you know, I think everybody should obviously stay what they've got to say, but if we can sort of do it in a judicious period, that would be great. That would allow everyone else to do that. I've been known to be called Charlie Rose on occasion, so I will, if you don't mind, and not out of disrespect, but try to move that conversation so that people can we can have a little broader discussion if possible. So with that, I'd like to open it up. Carol.
I kind of concentrated on the port as chair, you know, and I think it starts on page 24 if anybody has the handout. And I went through this with Carlos Buqueras, who happens to be in the audience also. And we just had, I understand your comments regarding a lot of the stuff you said. As you know, we have a new director there now, and who is more aggressive as far as international. And I think that has been an issue with Port Manatee, and we're starting to move in the direction of, as Carlos says, whatever floats, we're going to look at it. And he's making those international connections. I just wanted to know your comments regarding the management. You were more or less stating, your organization was stating that you thought that it would be the ownership still remain with the county, but it be managed by private sector. And I'd just like to hear from you on your comments on that, because we did look at other ports in Florida, and and Carlos is coming up. The Port of Tampa, the Port of Miami, and there's a few other ports that are run by county commissioners, and they seem to be doing quite well. So I was just wondering what your rationalization was for this private investor to be run versus how it's been run ever since its inception.
Commissioner, that's a wonderful question, and it's really a good one. And one of the things that we were fortunate enough to have, and you'll recall Mr. Panagore, who was here with us, you know, when we had the last presentation, who is not only an expert in municipalities, but is also an expert in balance sheets. And one of the things that we did
Excuse
was,
me, can you get closer to the mic? 'Cause
am I too far away?
Yeah, it's
Can you
good.
hear me out there? Can we
Seems
turn
like
this?
you're not catching. Can you guys
Hang
in
on.
the back here? I think we can't. Okay, that's weird.
If the light's on.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, much better.
There we go. Thank you. Mr. Panagore, who was here with us, and I'm sure you'll remember that dark-haired gentleman, is an expert in not only in municipal governance, but also in finance. And one of the things that we looked at after talking to staff, after talking to the principals involved, were that there's not a lot of balance sheet room in here, and that there's a lot of capital needs that are required in order to make the port more successful. And I said, and I really want you to think that this is not a criticism. There's discussions of both the port and the airport, and I'm sure that we'll talk about both today. Neither one of these are meant as criticisms, and I want to make that very, very clear. They're meant as looking at an opportunity of changing something to help you be more competitive. The idea of bringing in a private corporation is that the county can then clear its balance sheet, okay, by not having to put this money in. It still has governance and control, okay, but you're actually going into the private sector and getting them to invest in it and then do a shared program with you. How that's structured, boy, you can see that we haven't even gotten into that. It's only a suggestion that you would take a look at that as a way to free up tax dollars for an enterprise that could be self-sustaining. And the idea behind being self-sustaining is it can lower your taxes overall, and it can bring greater revenues into the county, to benefit the county.
Port Manatee is not supported by any tax dollars. It's supported all by tariffs. But you're right as far as the balance. I mean, we've gone through a major economic downturn. But I just got to make sure the public knows that we are backed by the county if an issue happened. But as far as how we run the port and everything, how we pay the employees, it's all done, business generated on the port, not property taxes.
Exactly, I understand that.
Mr. Chair, Carlos.
Carlos, would you like to comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Ports in the U.S. come in all sorts of flavors and shapes, as you know. And there's a variety of governance models, from state to local to city to authority. The principle, though, target is obviously to be a major economic promoter of trade. In the case of Port Manatee, as Chair Whitmore was saying, we are not supported by any tax dollars, and we really don't want to be. I think the port should add to the pie, not, in a way, detract. Other ports around us do rely significantly on tax dollars to the tens of millions every year. However, they're also trying to get off the tax rolls if they can. And as such, though, the port, as you're suggesting, should be a public-private partnership within projects. And those projects are all throughout the county and the state, meaning that we bring in a partner for the development of a specific terminal where they're putting in skin in the game and we're putting in. So now all of a sudden they're incentivized, they're motivated to do that. And that's a model that I used on the East Coast very extensively, because it is the best way to make the shipping line or the user commit to the success of the port. And I think that model the board is already supportive of here.
Any other comments on this subject?
I just want to make one comment. We continually say the port's not supported by tax dollars, but us folks that pay federal taxes and see all the grants that the port gets, Tiger grants, all the federal money, we just should clarify that there are, in fact, many federal tax dollars,
right,
grants that go into the port, and we're
yeah,
grateful to have those. But I think this opportunity to have private investment, I think all of us recognize that we want that. We want to see private investment in the port. We have already public-private partnerships, the folks
Right.
that run the cranes.
Correct.
I mean, we have all of those folks, and we need to expand upon those. And any ideas that we can have to get there. You know, we have a relatively small staff doing marketing, and that's the way it is in government nowadays. Things are lean, but if we have ideas about from other best practices wherever else in the country that you're familiar with, and how we can expand the opportunity for public-private partnerships, I think we would like to hear about that. It might be interesting to think about and I asked Carlos this directly, are there other examples where you have private participation on your board? And that, and you want to go ahead and answer that?
Right, thank
Carlos?
you, Commissioner. There isn't at this point in the U.S. You know, ports are state ports like Georgia Ports Authority, South Carolina, North Carolina, where the governor appoints the members of that authority. There are elected authorities, such as this authority. There are county authorities in Miami and Dade that have the port as a department of the county, but no private, let's say, sector participation on the board, because they don't have a stake in the game, and then if they could go cross wires if their interests are, you know, at cross purposes with the county's interest or the port's interest. So port authorities have been very, very careful not to really bring in the private sector without the private sector having really an issue that that requires them to be there. And so far, there are advisory boards. There are advisory boards to the ports, but no authority has let's say a private business person that hasn't been appointed by the governor, or is not an elected official. So they're all private. I'm sorry, they're all public in that sense.
And I know we have Mr. Piccolo here, and he might want to follow up on some of the ideas relative to the airport.
I thought the report was very good about the airport is a major economic driver in the community. We are very similar in the sense that airports throughout the country have many different governance models, city departments, county departments, and then also authorities. We're an independent special district. The one thing I will say that I have strong disagreement in the report with is the change in governance model. The people that have been in the community may recall that the governance model of this airport was an elected facility just about 10 years ago. And by a 2-to-1 margin in 2 counties, which is almost virtually unheard of, the populace voted to do away with that because I have no qualms about saying this. Our board was probably the most dysfunctional public agency board in the country in aviation. Had that reputation throughout the country. We now have a board that has all private individuals on it, yes, appointed by the governor, but they are local. They are 3 from Sarasota County, 3 from Manatee County, which I think is another attribute here that people have to be aware of. We may be the only airport in the country that sits in 3 political jurisdictions, the 2 counties and the city. And so the representation has to be from a greater area. So while I agree with the overall theme that the airport's very, very important, I think that the public spoke about this 10 years ago, about what the governance model should be, and there is actually local representation. It is not controlled out of Tallahassee. From a financial standpoint, very similar to the port, we don't get any local tax money to support our operation. The difference being is that we don't have a backstop either. If things really got bad at the port, they can turn to the county, and it's your responsibility. In the case of the airport, as an independent special district, we have nowhere to go. We would literally go bankrupt. I'm sure there would be some governmental intervention, but it would probably be at the federal, state level. We receive federal and state dollars for capital programs only, but those come out of user fees on airplane tickets and on aviation fuel, and all airports in the country are eligible for those. And actually, it's the local user paying that fee into that trust fund, and we don't get as much money back as we actually contribute as a community. So from a private, we're probably the closest thing to private enterprise in the community. And from a financial standpoint, we will be one of the few airports in the country by next year that is totally debt-free. To contrast it, Tampa International has a debt load of about $750 million right now. We will have 0, and we have about $28 million in the bank. So from a financial standpoint, I don't see where a change in the governance model does anything to improve the airport. And otherwise, I think the report gives very positive kudos to the airport as far as its position in the community, but it's not just in Manatee County, it's in 2 counties.
I'd like to sort of fall back and regroup just a little bit and comment about an overall impression of the study. I'll venture a personal opinion. I truly believe that it's sort of like an aha moment, but you know, it's sort of self-evident that southwest quadrant is the area where we're going to have a lot of challenges and a lot of opportunities. And I think that's adequately supported in the study. The thing that I worry about, though, is that, and I mentioned this to Mike before the meeting started, and that is that I believe that in areas like Parrish, there needs to be a plan for how we're going to, encourage that community to develop, instead of just letting it happen, which is sort of what the report implies. Just Parrish will take care of itself. I'm not sure that the people in Parrish want it that way, and I don't think that we, the county, want it that way. I think we'd like to have major input from the citizens there, and compile a plan that we, the Board of County Commissioners, can use when people come to us and say, here's what we want to do in Parrish, and we say, no, I'm sorry, but that isn't the way we see the future. That isn't the way the people of Parrish see the future of Parrish. And I might also venture to say that we need to do the same thing for every other quadrant. We need to do that for Lakewood Ranch. I mean, I know they will say, thank you for your help, but stay out of our business. But but there may be some things that we can suggest to them that would be of use to that community. And certainly in the port area in Palmetto, I think that we truly need, and I'm particularly concerned about infrastructure in the port area and in the Parrish area. You know, where's the water, where's the sewer, where's the stormwater, where's the natural gas, where's all the things that we need to have ready and somehow be ready in case somebody comes and says, I want to do the following in Port Manatee, near Port Manatee. And they say, do you have water and sewer? And then we say, yes, but, and that but is the biggest problem. You know, we're going to have to talk to them about how we can we've got water, but we're going to have to get sewer to them. I've had some conversations recently about the possibility of changing our policy that we've used in the past. Why not build it in anticipation that it will come? If we can figure out a way to finance it, maybe through bonds and pay back when the development does come, I think we should at least think about that, because then you can truly look a developer in the eye and say yes when they ask you if the infrastructure is available. So I invite your thoughts. And I'd also, I think most of you have seen Ben Jordan's letter to me about this very subject. And if it's okay with the group, I'd sort of like to encourage him to come up and talk to us about that and add his thoughts to what I've said. Ben, would you go to the podium, Ben? That way the spears can hit you easy. Go ahead.
Those are good points, and I just wanted to add, that we also need to plan, and you mentioned the Palmetto area. We have so many older neighborhoods that were planned before we had the comprehensive plan, and they're lacking sidewalks, they're lacking that infrastructure, they're outdated, they're tired, and they also need a jolt. And I thought, after Ben speaks, Mr. Maxwell can point to that. And I know the Southwest District sector is targeted in here and identified, but there's also a northwest, I guess so to say, unincorporated area that surrounds this convention center that I hope you could address at some point on how to.
We'll do that
okay.
after Ben is finished. Thank you.
Just to add on to what Commissioner Bussell noted.
Commissioner Bussell, I want to thank you for your comments, and I won't read the whole letter. You've all read the letter, but there are sections I do want to read. For the past several years, I've worked with several other volunteers to try to help Parrish move in the direction that will allow it to become the kind of community that residents indicated they wanted when they responded to the surveys in the Parish Village News. Thanks to support from the County Commission, we've had some success, including approval of both the North County overlay, which the development community also helped us put together, and the village overlay, which, while it has no teeth, at least began to draw out a concept of what we wanted the village to look like. Also, thanks to support of the commission, we have a wonderful, and I might add, financially successful community center, along with a new library that has been equally successful. However, these successes are really overshadowed by our failure to develop a master plan for the future commercial development of Parish in general and the village area in particular. One of the main causes of our frustration is that we're willing to participate and assist in the development of such a plan, but the financial resources to accomplish this are not available. Our frustration with this lack of funding really came to a head with a recent offer by FDOT to install what amounts to a minimal amount of landscape when they widened 301 through the village. And we were unable to find an acceptable solution to cover the $4,000 a year cost of maintaining this. Now, I want to say that again. FDOT was willing to put the landscape in. It was very minimal. They would maintain it for 1 year, but they had to have somebody to come in and say that they would accept maintaining it. The county said that they had a policy not to do that. The Civic Association tried to step up, but we were told that only a taxing authority could do something like this, could guarantee that the landscape was kept up. And there were people that actually had discussions with us about setting up an MSTU. The cost of setting up an MSTU exceeded what the cost of maintaining the landscape for the next 20 years would be. I was one of the people that was interviewed by the ULI group, and I attended their presentation. And quite frankly, I was dumbfounded and disappointed when they said you don't need to help Parish in Lakewood Ranch. Now, I've read their latest thing in this preliminary draft document, and it really doesn't have that kind of language in it. I'm very intrigued with some of the points that they made. I think stressing the importance of our education system in the county for the future workforce is great. I think their idea of looking at the 3 colleges as one entity and marketing them as such is also great. But when they say you don't need to help Parish, what they're really saying is the development community will build out Parish. But because there's no plan to guide the developers or incentives that can be offered to encourage them to take on a marginally successful but needed project, we risk ending up with a group of small and possibly not compatible projects that quite possibly will not fit together to make a community. This logic, no master plan, is partially what created the opportunity the county now faces along the 41 corridor. I urge you, no matter what you do, which I was really looking at the options that you were presented originally, but whatever you do, do something to help Parish out. We're not asking you to do it all. We're just asking you to help us get it started. I thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you, Ben. Comments?
Let's see, well, Michael had a question.
Michael,
Well, it was that question about the sectors that Commissioner Bussell was mentioning, and my comment was about the older neighborhoods that have lacked attention over the years, and how we, often we focus on reviving them through federal dollars, community development block grants, and other types of grants to update their stormwater facilities, sidewalks, lights, those things that communities now get automatically through the development site plans and through the comp plan requirements, but historically they didn't have them and don't have them today. And sometimes those areas turn into blighted areas because of that lack of attention. And I guess as far as what Mr. Jordan was saying, would form-based codes help in that respect as far as planning the parish areas and others?
Yes, they would, very much so. As a matter of fact, form-based codes would deal with that in a much more effective way than what we have now with Euclidean zoning, which is very, very prescribed. Form-based codes gives us lots and lots of opportunities to do things that meet the specifics of a particular area. One thing I'd like to clarify, if I may, is that we were here 5 days. how we will grow has been going on for 3 years, and so you got a bunch of really talented folks who parachuted in for 5 days and got medevaced out, and came back, and we gave you your best opinion based upon what this is. The idea, of course, is that you all will use this draft, and that's exactly what it is. I mean, you can still see the spelling errors in here, as a way to move forward and to say, well, gee, we should really look at some things. So this is a very high level. I'm going to tell you, it's probably a 25,000 foot, view of everything, of course. To very specifically answer your question, I would tell you, and I'll be happy to put it into the report, that the Southwest Quadrant should really be, what we're talking about there, should really be a model for how you deal with the older areas as a way to look at that. And that's supposed to be in there, but it doesn't sound like it is. So I will make sure that that's there, because it's essential that you look at this, how we're talking about the Southwest is how you revision these other places. I will also tell you that over in Palmetto, I mean, it's just some of the best tomatoes I've ever had. I personally like it very much, and I think that this rural character is something that we're missing. And we talk a lot about, and this is important to understand, we talk about being ready for development. For the most part, you are. But markets, and we all understand that markets drive development, okay? I mean, the public sector really takes us to mile 9. The fire, the police, the plating, the legal system, all the water, the sewer, the schools, everything that we need in order to build. The private sector takes us the last mile. And I know all of us are cognizant of that. And so how do we present something that says, okay, here's where the first 9 miles went, how do you make the last mile work with the first 9? That's up to y'all. And having small, what I would call sector and area plans is essential. That way you can preserve character, you can maintain character, you can build identity, you can create brand, and you can have differentiation. I think the thing that I'm hearing the most, and I heard before, was that folks look at all parts of the county as being different. The beaches are different, the Southwest is different, Lakewood Ranch is different, Parrish is different, Palmetto's different, Bradenton's different. It's wonderful. We don't want it to look the same, and I know y'all don't want it to look the same either. So, I mean, it's really impingent that you talk to John and that you have Ed and Dan and John, make sure that you have these sector plans as part of that. And so that's really essential. Yeah, Carol.
Well, I want you to know that your coming here and doing what you did stimulated the whole board. I mean, we just talked about, I brought up the DeSoto Mall area the other day just because of your presentation and reading it, all the information, just to give incentives to redevelop in these areas. And it's nice to see people from the outside come and look at come and take a fresh look of stuff that we know, but it's nice to hear from somebody else, the professional. So I don't want you to.
Thank you.
I don't want you to think that you are. I don't want us to feel like we're trying to defend what we're doing and that you're trying to defend what you're doing. I think this is good information that we need to take back, and I agree with Ben about Parrish. But again, government works so slow, and us in the private sector, this drives us nuts. But we have to have, and we hear all that. And then the reason why we're all here now is to listen and to figure out what's our next step to really start moving, because the citizens are ready and we're ready. These incentives to the development community for the Southwest District, to the parish areas, if we have a plan, this is all great stuff, but we just need to now have a deliberate process that we're going through to start changing things, because nobody's going to do anything with us until we make it good for them and they can make a buck too. Let's just face it, a developer is not going to do it unless there's an incentive to do the things that we need to do. And there's a lot of tired areas in Manatee County that need redevelopment, and this may be our little oomph to get there. So I appreciate it. I mean, I really enjoyed your presentation.
Well, thank you very much. It's very kind of you. That's it. No, I'm sorry.
I couldn't agree more, Larry, with what you were saying about essentially targeting areas and planning in each area, because they are so different. welcome to the world of municipal services. The county commission used to be in charge of rural lands, essentially. Now you're in the city business in many ways, and I think you hired the right people to get that kind of thinking on the table. Now, the county commission has a certain distinct advantage here because we have a couple former mayors who understand municipalities serving on the county commission, and that bodes well for planning in smaller sectors and then making them fit into an overall plan. They've walked that walk already, so it will be, I think it's a terrific starting place. There's nothing in here, as you say, that's concrete. It's a draft. It is food for thought, if you will. And to take Carol's point just a little bit further, there needs to be a plan developed, and then the real work begins. Do something. Doesn't matter what the hell it is you do, just do something and it gets it started.
Betsy?
Yeah, I appreciate these comments about planning and listening to Ben Jordan and having worked with him through the development of really what is actually the first form-based code in Manatee County, which are the regulations for the development of the village of parish. But having reviewed the entire document, there's a theme, and the theme is that we need to have investment. And my question is, where are the funds going to come from? And I know there's probably not an easy answer, but having participated and watched over the last 25 years the development of Lakewood Ranch, the success of Lakewood Ranch is the fact that it is a master plan community, and the funding was put in place largely for installation of the infrastructure through community development districts. I mean, there's a funding mechanism that has created that. And we're successful in the parish area with basic infrastructure because of our facility investment fees and our impact fees that have allowed for infrastructure to be developed there. Again, maybe there's never been the master plan that needs to be done, and I still think we need to work on that in parish for infrastructure. But what really seems to be the focus, or one of the focus in the southwest sector, where we have basic infrastructure, but it really is not to a standard that can support the redevelopment that we'd like to see. And of course, you got a chicken or the egg kind of thing going on there, because you don't have, you're not going to have the impact fees, you're not going to have that facility investment fee to be able to retrofit that. So to me, that's the biggest challenge in redevelopment, is how are we going to pay for it? There was a lot of discussion about, different opportunities through the CRA, but of course, as we found with some of our CRAs, the timing was bad. There wasn't enough commercial development in the area to support an increment going up. It didn't happen. So there's been some real hesitancy about going forward with, expanding the CRA. I was part of that process, but I would like to hear more about what the opportunities are for funding, because I think that in parish, you have a similar situation. I know I asked Ben Jordan to speak with some of our folks that have worked with the CRA to look at ideas, but they're ready for development in parish. They just don't have the critical mass that they need to get the commercial development. Where we're ready for redevelopment in the southwest sector, we don't have the funding. And again, the market issues, mainly I think because of some of the standards that the county has put in place that have inhibited development in the southwest sector. But I'm interested in pursuing that more. Where do we get good information so that we can, flesh out this very high-level plan? I'll ask this question.
Well, those are terrific questions, and I'm going to say the very first thing is that if, I remember when I rode a bicycle the first time, I fell down. And I got up, and I got on it again, and it fell down. And it probably fell down for about 3 days, as I recall. And probably went home and said, I don't really want to do this. But on that third day, I got up and I rode the bicycle, and I've been riding it ever since. And I look at doing things that way. And I think that from our last conversation that I try to look at things, and the group of people we put together try to look at things to give you maximum value. You have to get up and you have to look at it differently. You failed before. Okay, start over. Don't go back and say, well, you know, I'm not driving from the rearview mirror, I'm driving through the windshield, so let's go. I think you answered some of your own questions, if you really, to be honest with you, Betsy. You've got to wait for the market to tell you what it is that you want for lots of things. Because you can put a lot of stuff in and you can say, you know, if I put this in, you'll come. They won't. They're going to tell you what they want. If you have a concentrated plan that says, look, we're going to start and create a critical mass, not because you want to be over there and I want to be over there and you want to be over there, that's not critical mass. That's why shopping malls are successful, is because everybody's together. That's why downtowns used to be successful, because everybody was together. And we have a model here that is not together. And it's up to y'all as the Planning Commission and the County Commission, you know, to begin to pull this together as you're maturing, let's say. You know, I mean, think of it. I mean, we don't have a big population here, and we don't have a huge industrial base of any kind, and we're looking to change. And I think that that's your real opportunity, is open your eyes and think real big, because you know what? You're going to fall the same distance from the bicycle now as you did when you were 3 or 5 years old when you started the first time. And you're going to get back up again, and you're going to get back on it and try to change it, you know, and learn how to ride. So keep going, you know. I mean, that the other is, I think we have laid out, and I'm not being defensive, but I think that we have laid out kind of an idea for you to begin to look at. Take your CRAs, and while your land values are really low, put them in place and make them really big, okay? Because now that gives you the critical mass to do it. It reduces your costs because it says, well, gee, I don't have 2 little ones anymore, I got 1 big one. And now I've got some stuff, and I'm not relying on you, the county commission, to fund it. I'm relying on that increment to fund it, and the people that I put into place to do that. And they're all directed by the folks at this table. So I think that that's just a real good way for you to look at it. And you can do that everywhere you want. You know, I want you to think again, just for be bold. You are not going to get anywhere unless you think real big. You need to pass this tax thing that's come up too. You need to free up space on your balance sheet. You need room so that you can finance things. You're at a pivotal point, and if you let it go much further, it's going to cost you a lot more. Catch it now. It's like a car where just the brakes are bad and the radiator's starting to go, but pretty soon if you let that radiator go just a little bit further, you know, now I'm going to need a water pump, and I'm going to need a new head gasket, and so, you know, you've pretty well said it.
John?
Yeah,
And then
thank you
Rob.
very much. I really enjoyed reading throughout this whole thing.
Get your mic.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I really enjoyed reading the whole thing. Very interesting. It's baby steps. You know, in reading this, don't get stuck on the ground floor. Like you said, it's at the 10 and 20,000 foot level, and the different sectors of the community. They each have their own character. Setting that and each character is different, but there is connectivity to each of them. There's several things in this thing I just wanted to read. On page 15, successful urban planning, land use, and development policy can best be described as public action that generates a desirable, widespread, and sustainable private market reaction. That is so key. And you know, government can only do so much throughout this whole process. But until you get the local people involved in their community, in the character of their community, and what it's about, and how they want to grow and develop and redevelop and protect and preserve the uniqueness of their section, it's not going to happen. It's not going to be successful. What Ben Jordan is doing in Parrish is a perfect example of how it can happen. There's other areas in our community, Palmetto, and the action that they're taking in their CRAs. Ben, I'm actually having second thoughts with regards to that vote on 301 and the landscaping. After reading this, I was thinking, yeah, you know, a minor investment in an area could help spur you guys on, the private sector, to do what you need to continue to do and even fight harder to get what you want, and setting up your overlay district so that you will have that incremental funding coming right back to you. It is so key. But until the private sector, until the private local communities in each of these areas take action and get involved, It's very difficult for government just to try to do this on their own. There's a couple other things on page 34. I have tons of notes here. The county approach, decision-making for infrastructure and other policy private investments on the basis of immediate and long-term impact can be linked long-term impact that can be linked to leveraging additional public and private investors. Again, the CRA, the reaction, the best return on the investment, the quickest return on the investment. Creating the critical mass, which you just talked about. Again, that's on page 34. The focus primarily in existing and emerging communities so as to create a critical mass in the marketplace, which stimulates substantial private investment and leverages existing investments already made. Again, parish, the port, the airport. We have so many things in the different areas, in the different character areas that we have in this community. I know Michael has talked about the redevelopment and development of our older areas in the community. Northwest Bradenton, I hear it all the time. The downward, not spiral so much, because I don't think we're on a spiral going down. I think we just, with the economy the way it's happened in the last 7 or 8 years, this is the time that we can make some significant changes in our thinking pattern and how we approach these issues to really get a tremendous return on tax dollar investment, on public investment, to leverage that and to have that private investment come into our community. So I thoroughly enjoyed this stuff. It's great. And I think it's a great tool for us to use as we continue to help Manatee improve and redevelop and develop into an even better community that we are right now.
Thank you.
Robert.
Yeah, ditto everything that everyone said so far, and I really appreciate the study, and it is a draft, and it's an outline, and a lot of this information we've known, but when you put it down on paper and you really see it, it takes a different form. And the different sectors that you identified are good for different quadrants, and different things go on in the different quadrants. And Commissioner Gallen and I are very concerned about the urban core and the Southwest. And it's great to see that, we really need to focus on this. Not that we don't need to focus on the other areas, but as we said, with baby steps, maybe you need to just start with one section first and start with a template and a model, and then modify it to how it will fit the other areas. I know one thing that's really going to be troubling the Southwest Corridor that's already started is the expiration of a lot of these homeowner associations and their deed restrictions. And so maybe we need to create another template for them to follow. I mean, each one is different, but each one is also the same, because once you have these deed restrictions expiring, like we've seen in Bayshore Gardens, then things tend to fall apart. We also need to create, now that the tax base is lower, it's probably on the upswing right now, and we mentioned about the CRAs and not as much funding is coming in as it was back in 05, 6, and 7. Maybe some of them need to just start over with a lower base, or go morph into the TIF. That way we're starting at a lower base, and then, as you said, expanding the areas and incorporating them. That way you don't have 2 and 3 different CRAs and different meetings and different staff and expenses, and that way you rein in your expenses. And I know Commissioner Whitmore brought up the fact that all this information is valuable, but we're planners, and what are the next steps? What are the expenses? How will we really fund all this? Do we need to, like Lakewood Ranch has been successful because they have the establishment of these CDDs and pretty tough restrictions. Do we need to go to the way of a CDD or an MSTU? And a little bit for each household goes a long way. And so I really thank you for the time and the plan. And I know on page 57, you have the implementation of the 2613 plan, and some things are in this report are revolving around that. I'm just throwing out the question of what happens if this tax doesn't pass. What's Plan B? And so we need to discuss that as well. But I guess we'll get to that after the election or the referendum and the vote in mid-June. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Rob.
Mike, I have a question. I can't remember, we've had so many meetings since our last meeting that we talked about when we brought up possibly expanding the CRAs, Ed, and Mike's idea of thinking big, you know, one large CRA, then you could do more in it. And you could do the stuff that you're recommending and the redevelopment in the Southwest, and then you could also form a CRA in Parish area. I mean, but I'm just wondering, when we had our meeting the other day, how did we leave that? Or is staff gonna look into that? I can't remember. We all started talking around it again, and I don't think we came up with a direction again, and that's what's so frustrating. I wanna get moving.
Well, I think what happened is we were waiting for this discussion.
Okay,
Then we were going to, as I said at the outset, we're going to revisit this after listening to you today,
good.
before the end of the month. At the risk of jumping ahead from that, is you go on recess, and I thought when you come back in August, we would have a workshop. And we'd bring up the whole subject of CRAs, TIFs, where, when, and how. The good, the bad, and the ugly of both. And perhaps you could start making some decisions about direction you would like us to take on those, or we could give you some options about what you might like to do.
Because you did talk about TIFs in certain parts of the Southwest, and, but we already have 2 CRAs. I mean, couldn't we at least expand that more down, you know, connect it and then go more east or whatever, but
There's
that's
a-
up to
There's
staff.
a whole litany of things you could do.
Right.
As Commissioner DiSabatino said, you could just start over.
And I think the reason why our CRAs haven't, well, one of them's been fine, I mean, it's been better than the other, but I think, again, Commissioner DiSabatino and I kind of agreed on this for ages now. It's it's not that it's not been successful. We had the downturn, everybody had that issue, but it's how we use the monies. And we weren't seeing redevelopment in the south part. We were we were doing community things, which is great, but we weren't incentivizing businesses to come there and to start and help pay for the redevelopment. So I'm just thinking, if you do make it bigger, you know, and you guys, and we'll discuss that later, if we do expand it, I think we could maybe get things done a little bit quicker, hopefully.
Our newest member of the Planning and Zoning Board is sitting there biting her tongue because she wants to talk
She's a
about
CRA.
CRAs.
Thank you, Commissioner. I don't know necessarily that being the newest member of the Planning Commission, I should speak a lot about CRAs, but I can say that what our philosophy always was is that you use the TIF from the CRA as that carrot that makes someone choose to buy their house or bring their business to that particular area. And other uses of CRA TIF dollars really don't replicate themselves and build up your budget the way we had done in the past. So, I mean, I think that's the way we should look at CRAs, is what carrot can we dangle that makes you choose here instead of there?
Good point.
Michael?
Oh, and you guys laid out a great carrot on page 59 is lose impact fees in the CRA. I thought that was pretty interesting, and I know we've kind of thrown this around on the board about having a tiered impact fee system where you're encouraging or lessening impact fees, or you're saying here nixing them in the CRA, so basically in the urban core. But you know, as far as CRAs are concerned, I've had, you know, my district has been bending my ear for years about a CRA in this area I've been talking about, the older area, the North 41 corridor, 301 corridor, and looking, you know, falling off the bike several times in our current CRAs. I think we know how to do them more effectively nowadays, where you're picking up future growth areas in those business corridors for future development. And when you're creating a CRA, Florida statute is pretty strict, as most people know. So, you know, you need to qualify those areas. I don't know if Parish would qualify, but I'm pretty darn sure that my area would. Pretty much the poster child for a CRA. So I think that would need to come into discussion. if we're going to combine the CRAs in the south of the river and potentially create one in the north quadrant in the unincorporated Palmetto area, which really needs that. So at any rate, I appreciate those carrots that you put in there, and as far as CRAs are concerned, and hopefully we can discuss the impact fees and how that might incentivize those CRAs. Thank you.
Betsy.
And I think that, again, focusing on the southwest area, because there is a need for infrastructure, and the ideas of not having impact fees are good ideas, but we have to be realistic that we have to come up with funding mechanisms. And so maybe it's not just a CRA, maybe it is a TIF like the county staff is looking at, because if we can concentrate the infrastructure, and we're talking about some major infrastructure, not just roads, sewer, but also parks. I mean, if we're going to be in placemaking, we're going to have to really look at this at a different level than we've done before. And that excites me because it's been pointed out, we frequently turn our back on the fact that we're so near the water. We turn our back on the fact that we do have so much infrastructure there. If you remember, some of you may remember, there was a study done, a transportation study done a couple of years ago, and they showed that the area that could actually accommodate the most growth was that southwest area of the county, because there is somewhat of a grid infrastructure, because it was developed, some of it back in the 20s and 30s when Whitfield got started. So there are opportunities to expand on that. But we have to remember that there's so much, like Bayshore, there's so much older stuff that has been neglected that we're really going to have to focus on that for redevelopment, and how are we going to entice development to come there. And what excites me is the idea of incorporating some of the large tracts that we know are going to be developed, that are going to be master plan communities. I'm not sure how we do that under a CRA, but obviously that increment will be huge and could be very well utilized in the area. So, I mean, that's going to take a lot of work. I have to get down and dirty, write plans, do all the stuff that has to be done to implement that, and that's going to take some time. But if this is our point to give direction, I'm in favor of that. I know that I think most of us are like the idea of trying to focus a lot of attention on the southwest sector, growing the if not the CRA, the TIF, and understanding what that does. We'll look to Ed. He's our financial guru. How is that going to affect us overall in the county? Because I think that's a question that's going to have to be answered as well.
I think the thing is, how do we create a device that generates revenue to pay for the redevelopment? And that's the key. Whether it's
a good way of thinking about that, excuse me, thinking about that is, and I guess Tanya and I can crow a little bit about the Riviera Dunes. Riviera Dunes, we were successful in changing the building codes so that we could go up, and developers wanted to come in, and they built high, and it became a cash cow for the CRA in Palmetto. And so we were very fortunate, very lucky, but we're also, in some respects, very skillful in the commission over there approving higher buildings. So I think something like that could certainly serve us well in the southwest sector.
Mr. Chairman. A couple of comments. I think a minor one on our quad map. We have southwest Bradenton running up 64. We might want to move that to the river.
What page, Richard?
Page 17.
Thanks.
And I know that's just I know it's a draft thing, but probably ought to run that up the river instead of right all the way out 64. I think northwest Bradenton better relates itself to southwest Bradenton. Second, since it's now fully in my lap, I'm excited to see all the comments in here about the DeSoto Square Mall, and I can see us as being an anchor for the Central Park that y'all are theorizing about. Central Park being there, and we can be one of the anchors there, and we're really excited about that. Third, I think it's interesting that 20 years ago, if we were sitting here, Tropicana would be at the table. There's nothing in this report that I saw about Tropicana. It's an interesting change that Manatee County has gone from where, the smelling of the orange peels that we all love, and we're not even talking about Tropicana and where it's going. Is it going to be here? Is it engine or not? I'm not saying that's good or bad. It's just interesting, and it's not there. We've really changed to IMG. The report has a lot in there about IMG, USF, all of that kind of stuff, and that I think is absolutely the right and good way to go. Last comment is I find interesting about that screen right there. Both of my daughters row, and of all the things you could have put, you picked that picture for the rowing program. Some of us who don't understand the rowing, Benderson is one type of rowing. It's limited and it's in a lake. The reason why Harvard and Yale come down here is because the Manatee River has miles of uninterrupted rowing, and they can get their boats up to speed, they can get their heart rates up, and Benderson just doesn't have that. You run into a wall.
Right.
So it's a totally different way of practicing. That's why that facility in that area has such a great future for the rowing program as a practice location. That's all, thank you. Oh, one last thing, you said be bold. In the late 1900s, an architect, Daniel Burnham Root, said, make no small plans. They have no magic to stir men's minds. So we need to think about being bold. Thank you.
I think using 64 is because it's a county commission district.
Yeah. I just don't know that Northwest Bradenton will relate itself to whatever.
I'm talking about on the east side. Comments?
I have a question.
Vanessa?
Yeah, you know, we talk about the CRAs, you know, how slow things happen, getting the people involved and to buy into things.
Get closer, John.
You know, Mayor, you want to talk a little bit about, you know, everybody realize that the rivers and Palmetto, the river is a tremendous asset, but how long did it take to get to where you guys are today? It takes time. It takes a lot of effort, private and public sectors. At Bradenton Beach, we did the same thing. It took years. It took years.
Anything innovative that government does takes a long time, despite how fast we're going to do it. We finally got our ASR well approved a week and a half ago. I offered up that idea, and we started working on that in 2004. And we finally got it now through the state. First one in the state, everybody's happy with it. Now you can do them everywhere. Saves tremendous amounts of money in expanding reservoirs. So it takes a long time to get those things done. Riverwalk took a long time. But once we got committed to do it, it got done. And that's what it's going to take on the part of the county commission in this exercise. You're going to have to get committed. You're going to have to be fearless in some cases and decide you're going to do it.
And that's using your assets, your physical assets, your soft assets, recognizing that you have these assets. Tropicana's a tremendous asset. It's not mentioned in here, but that's all right. We know about it. You know, he's, like he said, he's been here for 5 days, 6 days. They've done a lot of study, a lot of expertise, but you know, our challenge is to recognize all the assets that we have in the many districts that we have, the character of the community, and what they bring to the community, and like I say, leverage that, and leverage our spending in those areas for public dollars to get the biggest return, the greatest return on those dollars.
Yeah, John, I think it's very important that the commission, and both commissions, both the Planning Commission and the County Commission, understand that the county is the biggest city in the county. And if you look at it that way, I think it makes it much easier to understand. And what the mayor is dealing with is a much smaller section, but it's highly concentrated. And I would tell you that he's got the best leverage that you all have going. And I mean, downtown is fabulous. And it is moving in a direction that we hope that the entire county will move in. I think it's done just tremendous in terms of branding Bradenton and shifting the perception of Bradenton. I mean, I can tell you 20 years ago, you'd say Bradenton and people would go, why would you want to be there? And all they do is orange juice, or you can get a trailer. And I don't think that that's the case. I think it's one of the most dynamic, emerging areas on the West Coast. And I will put it up against lots of other places. And it's already attracted. It's becoming an engine for redevelopment. And I see it as really the part of the wagon that you're going to hitch on to. Because if you begin to develop sort of at both ends and then go to the middle, you've really got a lot of opportunity, because that is your critical mass. You're building on something that you have already. Vanessa?
These are all great comments, and I think that between the Planning Commission and the County Commission, we all want to move forward. For me, I sit and read the entire report, highlighted, and I was amazed at how close your report is to how we grow. Very similar, a little bit more in depth, but it goes to show that we're on the right path with how we grow. We just need to be more bold, as you say. I think we need to remember, and it's been said here this morning, that we have so many different areas, and Mike, I think you and I talked about this in my interview. There are so many different areas of Manatee, or Bradenton, whichever you want to call it, that's unique. That is one of the wonderful things about Manatee County, is that we do have so many areas that are unique. And we all need to be different so that everyone coming will have something that they want to see or do in Manatee County. I think that's very important. I've heard the talk of master plans here this morning, and I hear about Lakewood Ranch. Yes, I live in Lakewood Ranch. It's in my district. It is very successful. The real estate market right now is tremendous out there. However, it does bother me. I agree that, you know, Lakewood Ranch and Parish shouldn't be left out of this, because we all need to grow and mend and mesh together as a county. And I think in a lot of ways Lakewood Ranch can be helpful in looking at how that's been developed with Southwest Manatee or Southwest Bradenton. I agree that is really where we need to put most of our attention. There's a lot of things that can be done there that can make Manatee the jewel, absolutely. And I think that we have the ability right now to do this. So I'm very excited. One thing, though, I did want to ask you is two things. IMG seems to be it for you, Mike. I mean, IMG is it. That's what pulls Manatee County, Bradenton together. I was surprised at how the Premier Sports Complex was kind of left out, because, and I'll tell you why. I know it's mentioned a little bit under Lakewood Ranch, but you know, that is an international facility, and it has a huge economic impact. Mm-hmm. So I think between the rowing, IMG, and the Premier Sports Complex, we really have something going. And the reason I bring that up is because it goes from one end of the county all the way to the other. So, you know, I think we need to look, I would rather see us look at Manatee as a whole and not just certain things. I think it's important. I think that we all have the different areas and things that will contribute. But a big question for me, on page 36, under transportation, I was really surprised at this. About 3/4 of the way down, the current traffic pattern serves to congest cross-county traffic, but the panel found there is ample existing road network, so that the vehicular network requires redistribution, not expansion. Can you kind of go a little further on that for us, please?
Well, I'm not a traffic engineer, Vanessa, but you bring up some really terrific questions. You want me to address the sports first, or you want me to address the transportation first? Well, let me tell you about the sports. I agree with you, and everybody agrees with you. And if there's an overt or an over use of IMG, it's really unintentional. I think that you'll notice that in the report we really talked about, you know, this county becoming the sports capital of Florida.
Trust me, I love IMG. Don't take what I said wrong.
They're in my county too.
Yeah,
You know,
I
they
love
run the
them.
Sony Ericsson, you know, and they just got into our pocket for about $60 million. So, and we're happy to do it because we get so much more out of that than that $60 million. First of all, I think that if we go back and look at the sports, and you're absolutely right, everything that you do here for sports is incredible. You know, and what all we were trying to show you was that you can take what they've done and look at their plans in terms of how their business model works. And you can expand on that tremendously. And they'll be a driver for your business. Medical, sports medical, all different kinds of sports training. I mean, going into the educational systems and doing that. All you're doing, it's just like my comment about use Bradenton as your leverage point. Use IMG as your leverage point. And so that you're really building from what they've already started. What's that old thing I think I told you when we were here before, pioneers get the arrows and settlers get the land. And we're in the settler phase right now, and IMG has pioneered what it is that they've done. And and Nick Bollettieri, God bless him, started that with tennis. And then they went into other sports, and now look at them. I mean, they're gonna have houses there, they've got stadiums. I mean, this is gonna be a lifestyle. Hey, you know what, it's like Lakewood Ranch. Why is Lakewood Ranch successful? Well, they've done a bunch of things that we're encouraging you to do. In other words, they're a city, but they're run by a not-for-profit entity. They got a master plan. They got the best schools in the county, okay? They've got a great new infrastructure, okay? Why are they successful? Well, everybody wants to be out there where it's new. I mean, I hope your business is doing well. And I hope it continues to really grow. But as the old saying goes, I really don't need to give a lot of new money to folks, who want to be there already. So let's go fix the other part, but use that as a model. You're right. Why are they successful? Use that, okay? Do what it is that they're doing. And I think we've laid that out for you. We've really tried to say, look, you need to look at the schools. Schools are so darn important. People make decisions on the basis of schools. And so, where are the worst schools? Go take a look at that map and then go see where the disinvestment is, and you'll see that those two things track really well. Going back to transportation, you've got lots of transportation. You don't need to add to it. You need to think it through. That's more of the idea. You have a road network, with the exception of the north-south grid where the mall breaks up, that really works pretty well. Go on it right now, and you're going to see that you can get anywhere you want. You're looking at peak traffic movements, and peak traffic movements are always, heavily concentrated. I always like to say that, if you want to create more traffic, just widen the road, and you will. And that's the old build it and they'll come, and it's true. I have never seen a highway yet that got decongested because they made it bigger. Look at Los Angeles. It just encourages more people to get in their car. I think that you don't have a big traffic problem. You're not having these astronomical growth rates. You're not having a lot of new cars added to your, to your society. But you do have a system that needs to be tweaked so that it does flow better and it does move better and you've got better connectivity. That's all. I don't like to spend money on highways. I would rather spend money on things that, particularly an existing area like that's going to give me more dollars, into my community. Robin.
Yeah, great discussion about Lakewood Ranch. I mean, it is beautiful out there. I know when I was selling real estate, people had children. They just wanted to be there. And so I totally get it. But when we were expanding in that direction, I know we were kind of neglecting the urban core. And it really makes my heart sing that we're identifying that and we're trying to go back and fix that problem. I was driving down I-75 the other day and I saw a sign for the sports complex on I-75, so that was really cool.
Yeah.
So we need to have more signage for these key destination areas. But I was driving yesterday. I seemed to be back and forth across the entire county yesterday, and going up and down 41, it really is already looking a whole lot better. I would say from Bayshore north to Cortez, you have a lot more businesses gone in there. You have Chick-fil-A building in there. You have a couple other. You have a new Dunkin' Donuts. You have a couple other companies building in there. The intersection at Cortez and 41 is booming right now. So that's doing great. We need to spend more attention and more time in the south part of the county where you cross from Sarasota into Manatee counties. People coming in at the airport, we really need to do that huge. You have 7-8 lanes of traffic. You have a way to calm that. You have a way to plant trees and beautify that. And Commissioner Chappie talked about, the spending money on the the beautification out in Parish, and we really need to focus more on that. And the Bayshore Gardens Parkway leading to IMG looks wonderful now. They've spent money on that. So, you know, just sometimes the little things make a big, big difference. And just trees and plantings really, you know, green things up and are more welcoming. And really, and we talked about the impact fee structure, and if you really start at the urban core and offer different incentives to the different developers, whether it's the shopping center revitalization like we did at Bayshore Gardens, that looks awesome. And so if you revitalize, you know, the urban core, then other things will take shape. And there are so many tracts of land in South County that are ag or are heavy industrial, light industrial, and I talked about it before. If we give away to those owners to change the zoning without being super expensive, and that way we can help them on their bottom dollars as well. So, really good discussion.
Really good observation.
Thanks.
Thank you. Let's see, Betsy, I think you were here, and then Carol.
Yeah, and I'll follow up with where Robin was, again, recognizing as the question was raised about how do we increase the connectivity, and we talked about complete streets, and a lot of that needs to be applied in the Southwest Corridor. You know, we're doing that along 41 with doing some of the lighting and sidewalk plans, but again, there's a lot of holes that are in there, and we really need to focus on how we can do that. And the other thing that's occurring, of course, in this area is, and you've identified this, is the colleges. They want to expand. State College of Florida wants to expand. You know, they're expanding their programs. Got a lot to offer, and of course, a lot of that land around there is suitable for redevelopment. And so we're going to have to work very closely with them to understand what their long-range plans are so that we can incorporate areas for expansion and making sure that we, you know, provide every opportunity to have alternate transportation means. I've often thought that, you know, kids, we shouldn't let them drive sometimes. They're a captive audience. We could make them take alternate transportation forms.
Well, it costs their parents lots of money. You remember, a car costs you $8,000, doesn't make you a penny.
That's
No,
right.
exactly.
My children. But also, on the other end of that spectrum, I had a discussion with some folks from Colony Cove and recognizing that in that area where there's so many mobile home parks, and they want to take golf carts, but our rules don't allow them on US 301, the state. So how do we plan? How do we have an overlay district in that area that can accommodate golf cart traffic? Again, recognizing that there's going to be a need for alternate means of transportation, and when new development comes in, say, okay, how are we accommodating the golf carts so that they can, you know, go through the area and get to the commercial areas where they want to be. So that's something else I'll just throw out because I had that discussion with staff about looking at maybe an overlay district, how we could accommodate golf carts.
If I can, just for a second, 'cause
Sure.
I want you to keep thinking like that.
Okay.
The average street has between a 45 and a 60-foot right-of-way. On a 60-foot right-of-way, you can do anything you want. You know, particularly if it's a 2-lane road. And a lot of streets were made very large, you know, earlier in time. And so travel lanes, a wide travel lane is 12 feet. You want to constrict traffic and slow it down, make it a 9 or a 10-foot travel lane so it's really tight. Now you got all the room you want for trees, for sidewalks, for golf carts. So you're essentially taking 20 feet, okay, out of that 60. So now you've got, you know, lots on either side. And I'm not just saying that, but it's a way of looking at finding the resources that you have. It's kind of like the traffic discussion that we just had. You got plenty of capacity. Figure out how to use what you got to make it work better. And that's engineering. And I think there's lots of engineers and really qualified folks around here. And I got a friend over here who'd just love to start doing stuff. So they're looking for direction from you. Yes, ma'am.
I have to make a comment regarding a comment that was made about Lakewood Ranch. I've been around since I helped write the Certificate of Need for Lakewood Ranch Medical Center in the 80s.
Wow.
And, yeah, I know I'm old. But
You were 12?
Yeah, I was. They hired young nurses in. But Lakewood Ranch was paid for and built with not Manatee County monies. That's why they're a master plan and they did it right. So it wasn't the county was really neglected when they start building. I mean, it gave people jobs, but what you saw, and maybe it was previous boards or previous, elected officials in other cities, it's that we weren't thinking forward enough to redevelop in the areas that were starting to get tired. And so I did want to clarify that because, I even hear from people to this day that they think the county subsidizes Lakewood Ranch. And, some of those people pay $20,000 a year just in their CDD funds because they pay for their own roads, their own lighting. And those pipes and everything were laid in the ground before the first house was built. And, but I do think that unfortunately, maybe it wasn't, things started getting tired and we should have maybe been more on top of it as a county and do the revitalizations, expand the CRAs years ago, just start catching it before the wave crashed. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify that because I've been here that long and saw, and a lot of times Lakewood Ranch does get the rap, but people don't realize those citizens pay a lot of money to live there.
I think everybody at this table recognizes and is grateful for what they do to contribute to the county. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a great part of the tax base.
And I don't live there, I'm just telling you.
No, but it is a great part of the tax base. And you know what? And I'm going to tell you that I want you to think of it this way. What's the oldest car you ever had?
1954 Plymouth.
You got it. And how much? And if you had that car restored today, how much would it be worth? Okay.
More
So
than what I sold it for.
there you go. And so it becomes a gem. I mean, think of it, that a long time ago, a lot of the stuff that we all wanted to tear down is historic today. And things have value changes over time. And so you begin to look at them differently as we age, as we become more mature, different kinds of things like that. I sure wish I had this old Austin Healey that my dad had. I mean, I would have a car that, anyway. So I think that's kind of the pivot point where we're at, and you've really put it well, Carol. Why don't you look at it? Well, it maybe just wasn't the right time. So now's the right time, and we're all here talking about it. And I hear and see a bunch of really bold people who want to take some action and move, and I'm kind of like, okay, why haven't we done this yet? We've already written it, and we've read about it. Well, I think Ed is going to get you there in August. Tim?
Yes, thank you. Not necessarily a question, just a comment. I think it's been echoed here, and I just want to reinforce what has been said, that I think the importance of some kind of an approved plan to give us some direction is really what's needed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure the Port Authority, I'm sure the airport and Lakewood Ranch has stated, they all had a master plan of the direction they wanted to go and what they wanted to accomplish. So even though lots of good ideas came up to them, besides it being a good idea, it did or did not fit necessarily into the direction and the goal where they wanted to end up. Lots of times on the Planning Commission, we do see a lot of good ideas come to us, especially as they're out in the parish quadrant. And it might conform to this, and it might be in compliance to that, which gives us a direction to look at. But we don't have an overall idea of what do they really want their place to look like,
Right.
or develop in a 10, 15-year scenario. So we're sort of looking at the pieces of the puzzle, and we're trying to put it together, but we really don't know the picture when the puzzle's complete.
That's right.
And I think that kind of direction to not only myself, but the various commissions, is really needed, even though they might be separate to the various quadrants, which I totally agree with. But I think it's something that needs to be done as soon as possible.
I would really agree with you, and I would recommend to both the Planning Commission and to the County Commission that you look at funding a series of charrettes in these areas where you bring in people. It's very well advertised, it's very well organized, it takes time to do it, but where the community actually gets up and begins to draw pictures and says, this is what I want, and then the professionals translate that back and then come back and show it to them, a lot like what we're doing today, and say, do you like this? And if you can give people a vision, if you can show them a picture, now they can say, we're going that way.
Yeah.
But words on a piece of paper mean different things to everybody, which is why when we were all together in the commission chambers, we tried to show you as many pictures as we absolutely could to try to get that flavor across. Because every picture, every picture can be seen the same way, but every word is not seen the same way or heard the same way. And so that's what I would really recommend you to do. Put money behind concrete planning, but not not necessarily just a document, but visions. And then give the power of the vision to the people that live in the area that you're planning.
Yes, agreed.
Let's see, with Vanessa, you're up, and then, George, I'm sorry. And then, there we go. Can we do that?
Me first?
Sorry. Yes, ma'am,
Okay.
we'll do ladies first.
There's so much good information in this. On page 37, down at the bottom, it talks about the panel recommends the county investigate the use of form-based codes, including zoning, that foster and nurture sustainable, walkable neighborhoods, easily connected by pedestrian and bike paths, et cetera, et cetera. I think we're looking at trying to do that with complete streets.
Mm-hmm.
And it also makes me think of the term live, work, and play, which, I think for Manatee and the different areas, it's a great thing to think about is having the infrastructure there for people in that area so they can walk to the grocery store, they can walk to the drugstore, or do whatever, or there's a little park they can walk to and enjoy. I think it's very important, and it would be such a wonderful county. What I'm curious about too, Mike, is I know some other counties have done some trips when they were talking about their downtown. And Mayor, I'm not sure what we did to make ours so beautiful, so please forgive me if I don't include you in that because I'm not sure. But are there other counties that have, I'm sure, that's gone through the same situation that we're looking at today that perhaps we could look at and see maybe some of the plans they came up with and ideas and how they proceeded and have been successful?
There are lots and lots of different places, and what I would really encourage you to do is to have the staff research a lot of that for you, and maybe make a series of trips that you could go to. I would also look outside of Florida, in addition to Florida, so that you can see another approach. We tend to be a little insular in what we do. I would tell you that Delray Beach is absolutely fabulous, and that you should look at that. But it's also a context that's different than yours. And this is a pretty unique area. And I just think you have so many advantages here that other places don't have. I mean, you've got so much water in this county. The ability to attract different kinds of water sports and just being on the water and looking at I'm always amazed. I mean, I can be downtown and I can see the water. It's like, this is good. I can't do that in Miami, unless I get up on the freeway or I'm in a tall building. And so, it's how you do that. I would absolutely encourage you to go to Delray. Talk to the mayor. I mentioned to Ed last evening, as we were planning for this, that the mayor of Pittsburgh, the former mayor of Pittsburgh, is a very good friend of mine, Tom Murphy. And I understand that there's Buccaneer Days, okay? You want to go up to Pittsburgh, I'll make sure that you get to meet the guy that made Pittsburgh, that we know today. And you want me to be up there with you? I'll be happy to do that.
Only in summer.
We all like Pittsburgh. And, but it's very different than where we are too. And a lot of the things that we have encouraged you to embrace, they pioneered it in Pittsburgh. The Meds and Eds, okay? Pittsburgh started it because they ran out of steel. And so now what? Well, we got to fix the guys that were broken, when they were working in the steel mill. Hey, that's a way to rebuild. Kind of like we latched onto IMG in the airport and the port. What's working? Let's see if we can't make it work better. Yeah. I agree with you. Get a field trip going. Some of the best thing you can ever do. Talk to the mayors. Talk to everybody. You're going to find one thing, though. They're all going to tell you the same thing. Well, it takes a long time to do this. Move fast. Move quick. Don't be afraid of making a mistake or pissing off 4 people. Don't do it. Look, you're elected, other than planning members, y'all are elected to be bold leaders. There are always going to be folks that show up that are against something. My dad was a mayor, of a small community, runs in the military. And, and he said all the folks that show up are the againers. They're against something. It was Texas. But the folks that are supported rarely show up. So who do you end up listening to? You need to take the best advice that you can and say, we're going that way. And you can either go with me, you can stand aside, or get run over. And we don't mean to hurt you. I'm sorry. Just, we're going. You got to get there. It's a mission.
Gotcha. Thank you.
George has been you've been real patient. I'm sorry.
No problem. Thank you very much. I agree with my fellow commissioner, Tim, here. A lot of times we have projects come before us and we approve that project, but in the scheme of things, we don't see the overall picture of how that fits into the overall, and not having that creates a lot of problems sometimes, both in the public and among ourselves. You get anxious over, did I do the right thing? Did I make the right decision? Because you just approving small pieces here and there and not seeing the overall picture. I just want to say this is exciting because I'm glad that we have a county commissioner and an administrator and people like John Osborne who don't want to maintain the status quo and want to see things happen in this community in the right way, to grow in the right way. So I'm excited about that. I have a concern. You talk about transportation and our roadway network, that it's adequate. My feeling is that we are inadequate in many areas. If you take from Bradenton going east, the state's widening State Road 64. State Road 70 going east has been widened. But from Bradenton west, it's a different story. Cortez Road is a highly constrained road. Florida Power and Light has a transmission line on both sides of that road. You would never be able to expand that road. You couldn't pay for them to relocate those. So it is what it is. And Manatee Avenue going west, the buildings are right up to the edge of the road in many places, and to buy right-of-way would be a serious problem. I mean, you just would never be able to raise the money to buy the right-of-way to expand those roads. So we do have some highly constrained roadways, and the only thing, and all of these things that we talk about that we would like to see grow and expand, and there's a price tag attached to it. And I noticed that in your and the material that you gave us, that you do promote alternative modes of transportation. And I know that our county commission right now and the Sarasota County Commission, the MPO, are wrestling with the fact of what to do with transit and what the future of transit's going to be and who's going to operate it. And I'm glad that we have a county administrator who has a personal experience with public transit, although it be light rail. He understands the concept and the importance of public transit. And but I think that public transit has to be a part of our answer when it comes to these constrained roadways and making them work better.
You know, George, you bring up a really good question, and I would tell you that the answer to continually widening roads and things like that means that we don't have any space for the people that live there. I mean, if we're going to move the cars, we need to look at alternative ways. You know, I mean, we had a lot of discussion about, well, how do we get to the beaches, and you know, how about we need another bridge, and then the comment was, well, how long dead will you be before that gets in there?
Right.
And I mean, because we know that it would just take forever. I mean, Ed is planning a bridge not too far from that, and it's going to take a long time to get there, and he needs it for that north-south connectivity. But getting another bridge across the bay over to Longboat, you think you and I will be alive? I don't, you know. But how are you going to deal with it? It's going to become more popular. It's going to become more congested, and we've got to look at things differently. So if we can do that, I think that would really be a marvelous thing for us, and your point's right on. But take what you got and try to make it work, you know, but look at it differently and be bold about it. I mean, absolutely be bold. You've got a chance. I mean, this is your chance to do it, you know. It's like coming out of the 30s, you know. Let's be bold. Yes, ma'am.
Surrounded by great two planning commissioners, and I agree completely that when we are tasked to approve isolated pieces, it's hard to see the big picture of how the impact of one is going to impact those that are currently here, and that's where we see the yellow shirts and the red shirts show up, because they're projecting down the road how this new community of 4,000 new homes is going to impact them, that they've enjoyed the quiet. And so we are always dealing with that, and they're tough. They're really tough. I know we have 7 and 7 of us that, you know, sit here every other week, and, you know, we have agita over, you know, making an impact for the future. So we really need to see the big picture as Mr. Rhodes has established, and then we can decipher the little pieces. And I had written down the same question that Commissioner Ball had said, you know, what are similar areas that have gone through this, and what did they do that we don't need to reinvent the wheel? We need to, you know, take that and move forward. The good thing about our county is that you talked earlier about the grid system. I mean, and Cortez, and I was out there a million times yesterday. You have a bazillion routes to take. You know, I'm going to do anything that I can to stay off Cortez or Manatee Avenue. I take the 26th or 34th or some other streets, and then, you know, it's a slower pace, and you enjoy it, and you get to see what's going on in the different neighborhoods. So we do have options, whether you're down in south of the Sarasota County. A lot of those counties don't have a lot of this east-west, north-south connectivity, and you're beholden to either 75 or 41, and it's a nightmare getting to like Bonita Beach and Bonita Springs and so on. So we do have that. And, you know, also talking about how long things take, and the mayor was saying in 2004 they started it and implemented it 9 years later in 13. You know, there was a study done in 2000 about the Bayshore Gardens, about they needed reclaimed water and they needed sidewalks and they needed streetlights, and yet, you know, nothing was really done. So we still have that study, and it's still valid today, and all those the results, you know, we could implement today, and you could just change 2000 and make it a 13, and it's like you just did the study. So, you know, there's a lot of good things that we already have, the infrastructure, and we just, you know, need to improve upon that. And
Robin, I've got something
yeah.
for you.
Okay.
How about this? How about you guys find $100,000 somewhere? Pick $100,000 wherever you can, piece it together. Go down to the colleges. They have a fabulous art school down there. I know it's in the next county, okay? But they live here because they're smarter than that. And say, we're going to challenge all the college art programs over here to come up with a statement that when I come across the Sunshine Skyway Bridge, or I'm at 75 at Palmetto, and I want you to, and I'm going to have a competition, and the winner of the competition gets X, and the second place, and this, and you bring the community in to build the community. And then you build it.
Right.
6 months, a year, do it.
Right.
Get yourself the momentum going to get up the hill without having to pedal harder.
There's,
Okay.
Ed would know about this. There's a community near Celebration, because when we were going to Disney, and when you get off, they have a big arch, and it's welcoming you to this area. You just want to get off, and your car just wants to go there just to explore what's going on. The shopping center looks beautiful. It's all landscaped. So, you know, they were bold, but it was new, so they could do that. But we're just, you know, we need to take...
Skate.
Excuse me?
Champion skate.
Yes, yeah. It was just so welcoming with the big arches. We can do that.
You can do it.
Coming into the county, wherever we're coming in on these major art, and it just welcomes you. You just really want to explore what's going on there.
Come across
And again,
the
a
bridge.
lot of those things
Come across
don't
the bridge
cost a
from
lot.
Tampa and land in Pinellas, and you didn't say Pinellas County. It says Welcome to St. Pete. It's a big pylon.
Right.
It's about 60 feet tall. I love it.
Right, and they do it all around the city. And the bike paths are unbelievable. We did the Rails to Trails over the weekend up there, and just to make, you can go on forever. And they're awesome, really. And they did a lot of that 10, 20 years ago, some of
Let's go
those.
through.
Yeah.
Well,
I think it's great. I got Betsy here, and then Carol will do that, and then if we have any other questions here from the commissioners, great. And then let's see what our friends and neighbors would like to say.
Looking forward to that, because it's important that we have buy-in in this in order to maintain the momentum that's going forward. But I'm glad you brought up that about the students, because when some of us attended the Village of the Arts presentation where David Brain at New College had brought in college students, and they had incredible graphics. And I think I mentioned this at the last board meeting, that I talked to David Brain afterwards and said, we would love to get your students involved in how we grow and help us to, because they can produce these graphics, and they did such a beautiful job. And he said he would like to be involved, and when his fall classes come up, so certainly we need to keep pursuing that, and get all the college kids involved, because there was a lot of discussion about economic drivers. And what's been interesting to me, listening to a lot of the economic development discussion that I've heard recently, heard some women business owners come together, heard many people, and they continually say they cannot find qualified employees to take the jobs. So we have a real disconnect here, and I talked to Bill Galvano yesterday about this in the morning, and this is something that we're going to need to approach. Obviously it's not just our problem to solve, it's the school board and the colleges, but we're going to have all these jobs that are going wanting. We got to figure out how to get the kids ready to take over those jobs. And maybe not kids, maybe some of the folks that, as you referenced, lost their jobs because their industries are no longer available. But we've got to figure out how to be able to keep our economy going, because we're going to need the funds. We're going to need the tax funds. We're going to need the facility investment fees. We're going to need the impact fees to do these improvements. So our economy is going to have to continue to be number one, jobs, and we're going to have to work very closely with our educational partners to figure out how to do that. So that's just an advertisement.
Carol.
As one of the, like Betsy, as one of the at-large commissioners, we are all over the county, and we're in all the cities. And I know the city of Palmetto, the other night I was at their meeting, they're looking at an entranceway sign on how they want to have that to brand their city. And I just saw on 64 yesterday, the monument sign for Bradenton, and by accident in Holmes Beach, the Rotary Club built that sign that's at Kingfish, and all the city had to do was pay $1,000 to water it, and they put our name on it. I mean, all the other cities could have joined, but they didn't want to contribute. But now it's like, that's the statement for that city. And I'm a big one for branding and doing a message. And since the last time you brought this up, I've been waiting until we hear from the citizens and hear from you again today, because that we have a sense of place here, and we need some young creative minds to find out, put it in a message as a statement of who and what Manatee County is. So I support that very, very much. And what hasn't really been brought a lot about today, but you've kind of briefed on it, is our colleges all around. And in that University Parkway, as well as, State College of Florida and our others in the MTI, but you also got the School of Arts, and you've got USF, and we've got to capitalize on that. So I'm glad you brought that up again today, because Manatee County really needs to have a sense of place, and that's really a sense of branding too. And I know people don't like to hear that, but in the marketing world, that's what it is.
It is.
So I'm looking forward to hear what the public has to say about all our comments.
Mr. Chair?
Okay.
I would like to ask a member of the public now to participate, and Dr. Crowsfell, I got a card from you. Would you come talk to us a bit, and then I think maybe you can come up and give me your names, and I can get a list here of who wants to talk.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk to you. I've been very interested in what you've been talking about. This is the second public meeting that I've come to listen to this discussion. And I just want to remind you about the State College of Florida, who we are and what we do. We opened our Bradenton campus in 1957, so we've been a long-term member of this community, and we're very anxious to be part of the future. In that regard, I just want to share a little bit about what we're doing that you may not be aware of. I did have the opportunity Saturday to talk a little bit about our academic excellence and some of the things that our students do and how well they compete. Our Model UN team won first in the Southeast region. Our PBL group, which is the Phi Beta Lambda group, won first and second place at the state competition. Our students, 2 out of 50 in the United States, were selected from the State College of California as Coca-Cola scholars. 3 out of 30 in the state of Florida is the first all-academic team. But I think what's important about that is we host competitions. We host academic competitions at our institution that bring hundreds of students and their families to this area, and we host them every year. I also like to talk about our athletic programs. We have 2 teams that went to the national championship last year. We have 1 that's gone so far this year, and right now our baseball team, as we speak, is competing to see if they're going to go to the national championship again this year. Our basketball team went to the state championship. Our softball team went to the state championship. But also what's important about that is we host tournaments at our campus that bring hundreds of students and their families to Manatee County for those competitions, and we host those every year. I'd like to talk a little bit about our arts program. When we talk about arts, we always think about that corridor along the Tamiami Trail, but don't forget the State College of Florida. Right now we're going through a museum assessment program. Our goal is to be the most innovative exhibition of art in Manatee County, both indoors and outdoors. And if you haven't been to our Bradenton campus lately, you need to come, because you will see art in every building you go into and between every building you see. Many of our students, we talked about graphic arts, we talked about art competitions. Our students go to Ringling. They start at the State College of Florida. Our students go to the University of Tampa to complete their theater programs and to compete for those spots in the theater in Tampa, but they come back and they continue to be in our plays. So if you haven't seen a play on our campus, please come do so. We have a cultural richness on our campus in Bradenton that I would argue is as rich as you will find anywhere as you make your way up and down the trail. We may not have the professional actors and some of the professional artists, but we have the people who will become those professional actors and those professional artists. And they bring people to our area. Our visual, fine, performing, and graphic arts can compete in any of these competitions that you're talking about to bring the logo and the look and the feel that we want in our Manatee area. Just a couple of things as I was sitting back there off the top of my mind that we do as the State College of Florida that bring people to this area and stimulate our economy. We've just agreed to bring our Chancellor's Leadership Institute. This is an institute that every college, state college in the state of Florida, send representatives to every year. It's coming here. It will be here at the end of June. We'll be hosting over 100 people and individuals from the division of the Department of Ed, and we're looking forward to that. One of the things that makes it difficult for us is hotels, finding a hotel where we can keep all of those people together in one place, and transportation, getting them back and forth from Lakewood Ranch to Bradenton to the hotels. But we're working those things out. We host a China Town Hall every year. We have, again, over 100 people that come. We also are connected with China, and all over the world people participate, but they're coming to this area because we're hosting these events. We host user group conferences all the time around issues like financial aid that are important in higher ed, around our different software platforms. We're bringing hundreds of people every year come to these events. And guess what? They're very excited about us hosting these because when they come, they always want to stay for the weekend. They want to bring their families. This is a destination that they want to come to. So by hosting these things, we're doing our part to stimulate the economy in the area, and we're asking that you make sure that you consider us and all the things that we do as an institution in your planning for the future. 57 years ago, we built our campus in Bradenton when there wasn't a whole lot out there. 11 years ago, we built our campus in Lakewood Ranch when there wasn't a whole lot out there. And right now, we're trying to think about where do we need to be next? Where are we building our next campus? And we want you to keep that in consideration also when you're talking about the future growth of Manatee County. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I just want to let you know a little bit about us, what we're doing, and how we're a participant in this community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Prosville. Sarah Hand from Bar Camp.
First of all, I'd like to thank you. I don't know if you heard anything about the Spark Growth Riverwalk 2013 4 days of events that happened last weekend. Thank you, Mayor Poston. It was a phenomenal turnout. Our Spark Growth initiative has grown out of what we've done as Bar Camp. Now, not just Bar Camp Sarasota, but if you look at our cards, they say Bar Camp Sarasota Bradenton. It's grown out of what we've done over the last 5 years. We are the largest business and technology community in the entire state of Florida. We have thousands of members across platforms. And although we speak all over the state and work all over the state, you, as a county and a city, were absolutely phenomenal. So as you look at this report and you look at the things that you need to work on, you should recognize that the project like the Riverwalk and the work that you've done in planning, you should say, wow, we've done a great job. Yes, you have a long way to go, but my background is in the public and private sector, and if you go to any municipality, most of the infrastructure in the United States is a D or below. Some come in as a C. That's why people don't care about infrastructure investments. They're not sexy, they're not fun. They tend to go for stadiums and cool stuff until things like bridges collapse in Minneapolis. So if you didn't do stuff in the Southwest sector, that's typical. But overall in the state of Florida and in our counties, you guys have been doing a good job. So I would say start from there, because it's you do need to hear that you're doing a great job. There's a long ways to go, but that's about really putting forth a compelling vision. How do you mobilize a community? I love the Bill Gates quote that he says, most people overestimate what they're going to do in the next 2 years and underestimate what they'll accomplish in the next 10. When we started this 5 years ago, we had no idea that we would have hundreds of people come and enjoy your Riverwalk. Now, the big piece that you mentioned, Mike, was about leveraging assets, leveraging the downtown area. What you did miss, Manatee Technical Institute. Okay, it is the #1 technical institute in the country. Did everybody in this room know that? I mean, we're talking about the colleges. They are #1 by far above every other technical institute. I met with the head of Career Edge. Yes, it's another asset. You guys have invested in that. I've talked to one of those companies that has complained about not being able to find talent and actually placed somebody there this last week. The piece is beginning to understand what the core competencies are in jobs. People only say you have to be a college graduate because, first of all, most of the people that enter colleges don't graduate. Okay? So businesses aren't just looking for college graduates, they're looking for people that have the core competency skills. Can they write letters? Can they communicate? And then they're looking for the specific skills. So you want to tie into the universities, but don't forget your technical institutes. And the big thing, with the schools is, I don't live in Manatee County, but where one of the things we talk about is the type of schools that my kids go to. I have gifted children. I paid a lot of money for them to be in private school and was very excited to find that the school system was better than I thought it was, and they're in a great location. I had a panel at our Economic Development Summit with entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs who have built multi-million-dollar companies, have done business globally, and have relocated to Florida, not just to build businesses, but to build businesses and raise families. People come here for a lifestyle. If you see our buttons, they say, work anywhere, live here. The type of industry that you want is that clean industry that goes with the sports performance, that goes with the technical. Invest in your infrastructure, continue to leverage off your assets, and pat yourselves on the back once in a while and give yourselves some credit, because in doing work around the state, you guys have a great start. And actually, I was just talking to Mike Bennett outside, and he knows this young woman who came here, was quoted in the paper, coming to Bradenton for a destination weekend. She said, I loved it, and is actually looking to relocate. So that's our goal, is to help people highlight what it is that you do, because, don't tell Orlando, but live in Orlando, live by the water. Right? Right? You guys are in a great location, so that's what I wanted to encourage you with. Don't forget Career Edge, don't forget MTI, because they're working with core competencies, and it's about vision. You can mobilize people if you have a vision that's strong enough that they can believe in.
Thank you. Marla Huff from Huff Engineering.
Marla Huff with Huff Engineering. I've been a civil and traffic engineering consultant in the area for the past 30 years, and I'd like to applaud the ULI group for recommending to assist the southwest sector. I've worked throughout all parts of the county, but I gotta tell you, they do need some help. In addition to the deficiencies mentioned here, there's always, the further south you get in the county, you got a problem with low fire flow. You're really struggling to meet the requirements for that. There's also overhead power lines instead of underground. That's, you know, another difference that they don't enjoy the new amenities that some of the newer facilities do. And then Planning Commissioner Tanya Lukowiak mentioned developer incentives. The number one thing, I've done a lot of work for developers, and the number one thing that commercial developers want is traffic. They like congestions. Right now, a lot of them want to be on US 41 near State Road 70, and not so much further south, as Robin mentioned. And as far as bankers, I've been on bank boards for 11 years. The thing they look for where they want to locate their branches is rooftops. And I'm talking existing rooftops, not rooftops coming. And when we were looking at it at Republic Bank, the number one area they wanted to be was on US 41 by Bayshore Gardens. It was the best rooftops in Manatee County. So there are some good things going in the southwest sector. Then also, Commissioner DeSabatino mentioned the Bayshore Garden North area is starting to come along good. But south of there, you've got a lot of vacant land. I drive that corridor on a regular basis. I observe the same thing. You know, it's like everybody wants to be where it's all, there's no land left and there's heavy traffic, but that part south of there, it's going to take a while before it fills up. And no matter what incentives you put, they want to be where their criteria is met. Number one is traffic, and then the second thing they look for is, does their phototype fit on the site? Thank you.
Sandy Ripberger.
Hi, I represent the local group of the Sierra Club, the Manatee Conservation Committee, and I just want to say that I live also in Northwest Bradenton, and we are truly blessed with the number of parks there that are being worked on, restored. Robinson, we live near the community garden. It's a marvelous opportunity to participate in an area that's near urban centers, but still has some of that old Florida agricultural feel. On my street, or near 71st Street, there are 2 houses under construction right now, so I think the economy is beginning to turn around. So I wanted to make an appeal for several things in this report that I think are very important, and that is the plans for the recreational development of the parks, creeks, canals, and floodplains, and also green space. Sometimes it is easier to put these plans off and sort of leave it to chance, but these are very important elements, not only to quality of life, but in terms of preventing flooding. In terms of urban legend, people say that when the DeSoto Mall went in, a lot of flooding problems began along Wares Creek, and I think when that area is redeveloped, it's an opportunity to look at that again, look at the drainage, and put in some parks in the urban area, because that will make it a much more livable area. Also for Longbar Point, which is under discussion right now, it's an opportunity to preserve some coastal water access. So please, as you're planning this, include the green spaces in the plans. My brother moved to Parrish from St. Pete several years ago, and he said, oh, we just love it because we're right next to agricultural land. But guess how long it was before that was rezoned. If people really, when they move here, they want that greenness, that open space, and we would like to have some assurance that the parks, the open space are being considered along with the infrastructure. Thanks.
Alan Anderson from Home Builders Association.
I wanted to make just a couple of comments. One is that I appreciate, Mike, your recommendations here and the opportunity to be on the interview panels. But I do want to comment to follow up on Commissioner Whitmore's comment here, that it is that misconception in the community that the taxpayers have paid for Lakewood Ranch. And I'm glad that it was made again here by the commission that, you know, the developers are paying their way, and they have and they continue to do that with any other new development. And so we just have to kind of promote that idea that, you know, to the general public, that we are paying our way. It's not their tax dollars, and we can continue to grow in other areas, especially hopefully in these areas, these 4 areas that you've identified. And secondly is that I was surprised that there isn't anyone here from the school board or from some of you know, MTI and that, but maybe their late night board meeting last night wore them all out. Because it went on forever. But I am a member of the Board of Governors for MTI, and I just want to follow up on some things that Sarah said, because I wasn't sure if anybody was here from that. But it is a world-class facility. I believe that we've kind of missed the boat a little bit on promoting that. And our education system here, not only with MTI and with our colleges in the area, that is truly important to bringing other people in, other businesses. And, you know, in our industry right now, we have a severe labor shortage of skilled labor. We're not working and we're not developing those skills in our K through 12 program, in our post-secondary, where we can get those skills. But it's not just somebody that swings a hammer or connects some pipes or hooks up some wires. That's not always the thing that we are doing in our education. There are higher level jobs, if a good industry to be in, but we have a severe aging concern in our industry, and in probably all technical industries. And with the promoting of a world-class facility like MTI, I think that is somewhere where this community, working with Manatee County, the local governments, the cities, you know, that we can promote that and bring more people to our area because we have those kind of facilities. So I think education, skilled labor, those things are very important as we go forward in this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Anyone else from the public, please? Now's your chance. Comments on what's been said or comments on the study? Anybody want to talk?
Tell us what you want us to do.
Whitey, please.
I'm Whiting Preston with Manatee Fruit Company. I just like to commend the board and the county for putting together this study. I think it was interesting listening to what people who don't live here have to say about the county. I think that's something it's important to hear, and I commend you guys. I think there are a lot of things in the report that we all sort of knew, and I think that was already stated. So. We support a lot of those things that are in the report, and it was refreshing to hear the discussion today, and look forward to listening to this process going on, because it will take a long time to develop the county, all the areas of the county. It's going to be a process we're going to have to work on. So I just commend you all for that. Thank you.
Anybody else?
You always have a comment.
All right. I think we're getting pretty close to winding this up, but there's some things that have sort of stuck in my mind as we've been talking here. And it seems to me it's a role that our board can play in this equation that we're dealing with. As an integrator, as a person, as an organization that has awareness of all of these resources that are around the county, but for whatever reason are not being called upon to be a part of the solution. And I'm thinking of some examples. We had a recent initiative out at the port where we had members from Barcelona, Spain that came, and a big part of the message that they wanted to talk about was involve universities. And yet we neglected to invite the universities to talk. We recognize that shortcoming, and we're going to change it in the future. Let me finish my spiel here, Carlos, and then I'll let you give you equal time. But and someone mentioned, well, how come MTI and USF and perhaps Ringling and New College are not here today? Good question. I don't know why. And then another thing that we've been talking about, making this a sports destination. I wonder, does LECOM teach sports medicine? Does anybody know?
No.
If they don't, they ought to.
Well, they'll probably add it in their residency, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I'm
One of
thinking
them.
that the residency program ought to
Orthopedics.
be, you know, if we're really talking about this being a sports destination, then maybe sports medicine and teaching people how to be sports doctors in the residency program at the hospital, at LECOM, perhaps, and maybe even the dental school, because you know, the athletes have teeth problems, you know, as a result of the sports that they play. So anyhow, those are just some thoughts. I'm sure there are other examples that people can think of. Carlos?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to clarify that we have corrected that deficiency. We are going to have our colleges participate in a meeting with those Spanish companies on June 14th here in Manatee County. So we're going to get that extra.
I wasn't poking fun or any criticism at you, because we all, I don't think we really, they didn't tell us what they were.
That's correct.
Going to talk about and wanted to talk about.
And we're reviewing the MOU they signed with other colleges in Florida on the East Coast. And we are going to see if that's something that's of interest to Manatee County and the colleges around.
Right.
And consider that type of, techno-campus incubator program that they are going to be doing with FAU.
Another example I thought of was bar camp. You know, for whatever reason, we commissioners didn't pick up on that and figure out what's going on. Some of us maybe did, but you know, we should have been much more involved. I say that for myself. I'm disappointed that I didn't really get involved in that and participate, because I think you know, the role of the entrepreneur and of the well, anyhow, the mission that they are taking on is a great one, and we need to be a part of that. What else? What else can we say about this?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, this exercise started when we were reflecting on this concept that the community had, that we were a low-rise, low-density community. And it appeared that for years and years, we accepted the concept that we were a low-rise, low-density community. And what went along with that was not only the low-rise, low-density, but we were a low-investment community. We didn't invest in our community. And that went on for years and years. And maybe that's what got us to where we are today. The simple fact that we want to change is the start of the process to be bold, to want to change. If we really do want to change, we have to be bold enough to think of those things that you've chatted about today, about build up, not out. Invite more people to the table, the community to the table about what they would like to see in their community. Create the investment tools to invest in our community, and then be bold enough to make the moves, because there will be people, as been mentioned here this morning, that don't want to change. It's been just fine the way it has been. We've survived 30 years of perhaps doing nothing. Don't change anything. It'll be a tough struggle. You see it in your land use meetings where nobody wants 2 to an acre when they've got 1 to an acre next door, let alone density or a tall building. It's going to be a challenge, creating green space and tall buildings and the like. But we look forward to the challenge. We look forward to doing it quickly. We were talking about getting ready for the discussion of 44th Avenue later this month. 20 years plus we've been working on that road. We have a plan to finish it in half the time.
Yay.
It's, but you gotta wanna do it. But it was one of those things that we paid for it a little bit at a time. Sometimes it just, go get the money and go do it. Some of these things you're talking about today, just go do it. We're gonna have some fun with this, but there'll be some people barking at us along the way.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment if I could. Mr. Hunsinger, I think you're aware of this, but there have been people on staff at the county, employees. I know there are some of our county commissioners, existing county commissioners, and others in the community who have wanted what we're undertaking right now. And we're inhibited from doing those kinds of things, even speaking up and giving our opinions as employees about, let's have some density and let's do away with this 33-foot, 35-foot maximum building height. We wanted to do away with that many times, but we didn't even dare say anything that that's what we wanted, but things have changed now and for the good.
Yeah, sometimes sitting here or sitting on Manatee Avenue or at the port, you know, we're in a can't-win situation. You know, you please half the people and the other half aren't happy. So, or then you switch it to vice versa. So it's real difficult. And you see 20 years with the 44th Avenue, and now some people are just getting on board that, oh, it's coming through my backyard. So, you know, and a lot of times the developer already starts the process of changing his land, and then we can't discuss it and we can't talk about it. So we're only getting little bits of the puzzle rather than having this discussion now and seeing how, you know, we're going to grow and change. We can incorporate them into the equation and discuss this publicly before they go and change it, because otherwise then we're violating ex parte and sunshine. It was good discussion about, some folks came up about the hiring and lack of skilled workers, because, you know, in our travels, there's not a day that goes by that I don't see a sign outside of a business, they're hiring. And then if I go in and I ask them what they're looking for, they need skilled workers, they're willing to train, but they can't get the people in the door. So maybe we need a better way of informing people what's out there. I know the Suncoast does a great job, the Workforce Board and the other companies, but maybe the people just don't know how to avail themselves of those opportunities. So we need to be more bold in those aspects. So again, you know, great discussion, and you know, sometimes you just have to hold your nose and jump in. So,
Mr. Chair, I remember like 4.5 years ago, maybe, yeah, about that. My husband was looking for a nurse, so I just put an ad in the paper, and I had to stop it the next day because I had 50 people call me. And it's not happening right now. And I think I heard Pat Neal the other day say that he was having problems trying to find employees to hire. So we're doing a wonderful job recruiting businesses, and I think our Karen Stewart and our gang and Sharon Hillstrom, we need to make sure that they're married up with our workforce, our schools, our high schools. Maybe that's the missing link. Maybe we need to be in the high schools, because I didn't start out going to colleges. I'm an MTI graduate. I went to LPN school because I wasn't sure that's really what I wanted to be, a nurse. And then I went on. So that's maybe something that maybe that's the missing link, because there's plenty of people that we hear that are looking for a job, but maybe they don't want to make 10 or 12 bucks an hour, 13, 14 bucks an hour. They should be making 27 or 30 an hour, and then we have to, give them the realities. But I think maybe that's the way we could work jointly with the school boards. And I remember when Robin first came into office and we had our first room of 100 red shirts, and we were all sitting there, and I said, just remember, and it's kind of what you just said. We are here representing 320,000 people today, and we have 100 people in the room. So you have to look at everything that's presented to you and make that educated decision as best as you can, because you're right. The only, very rarely do we have people come in the audience and fill the room up, or even quarter of the room and say, hey, you're doing a good job today. Thanks for doing all you're doing, and walk out. I don't think that's happened. Yeah. So I mean, I think maybe the missing link, because if we are, and I think Betsy's going to probably maybe have something in the future at Tiger Bay about this, but if this may be the missing link, maybe we need to get somebody into the high schools now. I heard the president of MTI speak the other day, Mary Cantrell, at one of the club meetings. She listed, as much as off the top of the head, as much as she could remember, the courses they offered, and I was blown away. I couldn't, and that was just what she could remember. And she mentioned about 25 or 30 different courses that they offer. So I don't think that is being advertised as well as maybe it should be, because there are people that have lost their jobs that if they know that MTI is offering these courses to help them fit them into a job, they'd be there. So maybe that's something we need to look at.
Robin?
Yes, and just
Mr. Mayor,
to
we'll get to you in a second.
reiterate, being bold, I mean, those commissioners that were on the board years ago with the dam and the water, I mean, they all were criticized and didn't get reelected, but to this day, we're thankful because now we have endless stores of water supply. So, you can't always win, but in the short term, but maybe you will in the long term. So that's what we're looking for.
Mr. Mayor?
I just want to give one plug for the Career Ed program that we talked about. And I'd really even like to have them come and do a presentation to you, one of your workshops. Because City of Sarasota has invested, City of Bradenton, County of Sarasota, Manatee Memorial, Blake, we trained 1,500 people in the first year there, including 80 people for the Trauma Center at Blake, for Manatee Memorial Hospital. We do it in healthcare technology. Now it's taking on manufacturing. And we're working as partners with the manufacturing community, because they always say we don't have any workers, but they don't tell anybody what kind of skilled worker they need.
Exactly.
That initiative we're doing, and I'd really like to have Manatee County invested in this, because you're not invested in it. And they tried to do one presentation on that. We'd love to have you be a partner, because it's critically important to this community.
Betsy?
And bringing this back, I mean, we've lost so many through the downfall. We lost so many workers that had to move elsewhere because there just weren't jobs here. They had to go elsewhere. And now as the economy starts getting back, we need to, as John has done a great job in the How We Grow identifying, it's a different dynamic, the folks that we're going to have moving here. But, I've heard all of us say we want our kids to be here. We want them to have jobs. We want them to raise their families. And what are they looking for? I mean, they're looking for open spaces. They're looking for connectivity. My daughter lived in Australia for a year. She had to come back. She was broke, but when she came back, where's the mass transit? I'm used to living where there's, mass transit. There's alternate means of transportation. There's got to be nightlife. There's got to be all of these things So we have to focus on that. That's part of our bold vision, that we're going to have to figure out how to accommodate, these younger folks is the echo boom generation is, so they want to move keep their families here, keep them here. What are we going to do? That's where we're going to have to be bold. So I'm excited, looking forward to creating that dynamic.
And really to cement this together, what the mayor said, and we had talked about Tropicana. We need to have all the major players of all the major companies and the minor companies that are hiring sitting at this table, because they know what skills they need so they can work with the school system. And so we really, as Commissioner Whitmore said, we really need to close the links and have a continuous circle of even the little ones, because sometimes you remember back in grade school you kind of knew what you wanted to do, and sometimes it takes children longer into college. But if you offer those things and just as you said, that carrot, when they're younger, they'll have a path to go on. Because I think right now a lot of the youngsters, I know a lot of us volunteer in the elementary schools and the middle schools, and they don't have a direction. They're just they're just being. They're not existing, and they don't have a vision.
You all put up wonderful questions and great statements, and I will say this, it's all about leadership. You are the leaders of the community. It is up to you to lead the community. It is up to you to lead the school district. I had no idea, other than a fireman, what I wanted to be when I was 6 years old. Someone had to say, here's what you can do. Kids can't make these decisions. You need to give hope, inspiration, and ability that people can do this. I think we're pretty well done. I would like to say that I would encourage all of you to listen to President Kennedy's speech on going to the moon. We go to the moon because not because it's easy, but because we have to, because it's hard, and we have to take these decisions. And that decision took us to where we are today. Computers, rockets, space liners, everything that you can think of, from this microphone to the plastics in this glasses, were made with that decision. It was 50 years ago. So the result of that decision was 50 years ago. So for the next 50 years, you have to lead today. Go as fast as you can. Don't take no for an answer. Accommodate people as best you can, and do the best that you can for everybody. Keep a consistent vision, but draw pictures. Show people what a picture looks like. That way, everybody gets on board. Pass the tax change. Free up your budget. Get money to come in here so that it gives you the ability to do it. You're leading the community. You need to go out and pass this. It will help you solve your problems. We talk about money all the time. It's not the expenses, it's the revenue. So look at the top line. Be bold. Be bold. Stay the course.
And on that happy note, we're all ready to charge off and
And save the world.
save the world, yes.
That's right.
But thank you to everyone. Thank you, audience, for participating, and this meeting is adjourned. Hey.
I'm just gonna leave my stuff here, except my
Good.